So the other thing we do is we work to give districts a unified voice nationally. We represent you with the National Association of Conservation Districts. We provide leadership on both the North Central Region Board, the Natural Resources Policy, and Finance Committees at NACD, as well as myself representing us with executive staff of other states. We have a couple of good pictures up here. Our delegates here at a North Central meeting at National Conference. In the center there, our President, Roger Wenning, representing Indiana. What you may not realize is that Indiana, for a long time, has been the top dues-paying state for NACD, both through the association and our individual member districts. We were beat out this year by one state by maybe just a couple $100. I think, pretty sure I remember Roger saying, "Man, we could have passed the hat and got that money and beat them at one board meeting." But I think it's important that when you think about the National Association and on that national level, when you go to NACD or you talk to folks from NACD, they know who Indiana is and what we're doing here. We also advocate for the needs of soil districts and conservation funding at the federal legislature. I think this slide's a very important, with these pictures here. You're looking at both a brand new representative and senator in the U.S. legislature that we were able to meet with this year. We go out with NACD for the fly-in every March. We send members every year to go talk to the federal legislators. And you might ask, okay, well, we have a farm bill every so many years, and it's important that we talk to them about farm bill years. But the one thing you may not realize is that every year Congress appropriates technical assistance funding through USDA, which we rely heavily here on in Indiana. So we go every year to make sure that all of the representatives and all of the senators and even the ag staff in the House hear from us in Indiana and what we're doing with those technical assistance dollars. We also assist districts with capacity building and administrative support. We work with ISDA and others to plan organization meetings for networking and learning, like our regional staff trainings that we just held. We provide training through annual conference to SWCDs and partners, and I underline there, it's for districts. And so I put in a plug here for any opportunity you might have when you attend regional meetings or trainings or annual conference. We ask you to fill out evaluations, and I think it's important that you give us feedback on what you think about these events and trainings, because we do them for you. And if we don't provide something that is helpful for you or beneficial to your district, then we need to know that so we can provide something better or more meaningful for you. We work through the ICP training program and CCSI to provide technical conservation training. We want to provide what you need. We work with partners like NRCS to coordinate resources at the local level. And we also carry a general liability insurance for all districts. I'm not sure that many districts are aware of this. I think maybe it's something that hasn't been as widely shared as it had maybe been in the past. But we hold a general liability policy for all districts, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little while. And we also work to coordinate funding opportunities at the state level. An example is we've worked with NACD to bring in technical assistance grants the last few years for high workload counties. And we also work with districts to help troubleshoot difficult issues. So what do my dues get me? I've heard this question a lot, and I've been told I'll continue to hear it quite some. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this. In my opinion, and I've only been here a year, but your dues go a long way to work for you. Each district pays about 1% of my salary, and each district pays about 0.5% of Amy's salary. We have grants and agreement to cover the other half. And district dues, I want to point this out, do not pay for CCSI programs or staff. These are covered through grants, agreements, and sometimes private foundation money. About $230 goes towards that master liability insurance policy I just previously mentioned. And I did talk to our insurance agent, I'm not making this up, and I asked, how much would that kind of policy cost the district if they went out and got it individually? And he said, well, anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000, probably most likely around $1,500. So while you're only paying $320 through your dues to cover that policy, you're getting something that may cost you $1,500 if you went individually as a district to get that plan. About $150 goes towards advocacy at the state level. About $65 goes towards representation at NACD. I mentioned that earlier, but we do represent Indiana at every NACD meeting, the annual meeting, the summer meeting, the North Central Region meeting, the Executive Directors meeting. And then the majority of the dues that remain pay for operational support, things like insurance, workman's comp, bookkeeping, tax, payroll. The one thing I didn't mention here, we also support 4-H and FFA here at the state level like you all do at your local level. And I wanted to point out too that dues do not pay for annual conference. This is covered by sponsorships, exhibitors, and registrations. So why is this all important? And the one thing I'll mention about dues is you pay $2,000 in dues annually, and you've been paying $2,000 in dues annually since about the mid-1990s. I think that one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that the cost of materials, the cost of supplies, the cost of rent goes up incrementally every year. I think you all understand that, and either in your personal or work lives, see those increases over time. So the fact that you pay $2,000 and have been since the mid-1990s, I would argue that you are getting great value for the dollar that you've been spending on your annual dues. So this is important because districts are local government at its finest. I snagged this line from another state, I believe, but I really believe it. I mean, we have 460 supervisors statewide, and that doesn't even include associate supervisors. I've heard other partners tell me that there are groups and organizations that would kill to have that type of grassroots base to work with at the state legislature. We have 202 staff statewide providing technical assistance and education on conservation. When you look at that number of staff, we are nearly the size of a small agency, and we actually have about the same amount of staff statewide as NRCS and more than the State Department of Ag. We were established to be the local implementation delivery for the Soil Conservation Service, now NRCS. And I think that's something that we all know, or we are somewhat aware of, but I think that's really something to key in on. We are the local trusted entity, the local trusted source that can choose the local issues to focus on in terms of conservation. And we are a leveraging machine when it comes to each dollar that comes into districts. When you look at the amount, and I have 2017 numbers up here, I didn't update this yet for 2018, but in 2017, districts leveraged $6.7 million in local funding, $3.1 million in state funding, and a whopping $87.6 million in federal funding. That's a lot of money the districts are bringing in through their local areas. And along with partners, we're making gains in conservation. Supported ICP landowners installed over 19,000 new practices in 2017. You look at the reductions here on this slide, nearly 1 million tons of sediment, 1.8 million pounds of nitrogen, nearly 1 million pounds of phosphorus reduced, not entering waterways or leaving fields. Landowners increased no-till acres on corn and soybeans 379% since 1990, increased conservation tillage on the same fields by 297% since 1990. And the one thing that I think is really awesome, you look at cover crop adoption, it's increased by 466% since 2011. Those first numbers I gave you were since 1990, and that cover crop number is just since 2011. And on here I have it, Indiana leads the nation in acres planted to cover crops, second only to Texas, and I believe we have been now passed up by Iowa. But we are at the top of the nation in cover crop adoption, and there are programs out there looking at things like crop insurance rebate per acre for cover crop adoption. So I think those are things that we'll continue to look at here in Indiana as well. So where do you fit in to all of this? We are all called to be stewards of the land. I think I've heard that if you're falling asleep by now in my presentation, that pictures of cute children are always a distraction. This is my daughter. We want to leave the land better for the next generation. And we take pride in our work. I think that we can all relate to this, no matter where we are, what our station, and what we do. And I think we can all be servant leaders. Servant leaders put the needs of others in front of their own and develop them to be performing as highly as possible. They lead to serve others. Soil and water conservation districts are true servant leaders when you think about this. Look at these characteristics that describe a servant leader. They include empathy, awareness, stewardship, community building, and being committed to the growth of others. I mean, I don't know how else. That sounds like a pretty good definition for the work that you're doing out there in the districts. And servant leadership isn't described by your role or station, but by your actions. And we need each other to have a collective impact. Every district not only represents your local district interests, but all districts. When you talk to a legislator that may cover multiple counties, when they think of a district, they don't just think of your district. So when you are representing your own district, you may not think about it, but you're representing all the districts at the state level, and I would even argue even at the national level. And individually, we are not as well recognized as we can be as a group. And we have this really unique opportunity, I mentioned it earlier, to organize this large grassroots effort. And it's not by asking for the money that we need, but it's by telling our story, talking about what you do and why it's important and who you are and how you're part of that fabric of the local community. And we need you to keep the conversation about conservation at that forefront of the conversation and keep it up front. So that way, when we at the association go to represent you at the state level and the national level, leaders, legislators, they know who districts are because they've been talking to you. I appreciate your time today, and I do encourage you, if you have any questions about what I've presented, to reach out to myself here. You've got my contact information, and I appreciate the work that you do out there at districts, and I'm honored to serve you here in the association. Thank you.